Two exciting new things to talk about today. We've got the new V collection, which just came out by Arturia. This is version 10, and it includes 39 different instruments. What do you get when you get this monstrous package? Well, you get all of these different synth recreations from, probably about the 70s on, all sorts of iconic synthesizers, and you also get some new cutting edge sort of sounds. So we've got the augmented series. There's some new stuff with the augmented series. We've got now included is this one called Augmented Woodwinds, which is brand new and very cool. We'll have a quick look at that one today. And they've also included the augmented brass and the augmented piano in this version. So you have the whole collection of augmented series instruments in there. And the other thing we got to talk about is this Minifreak, because they've released a new version of that just yesterday. And with version 2 of the Minifreak, you get a couple of new things, which we'll talk about today. But in version 10 of the V collection, you get the Minifreak, or the virtual version anyways. This is the first time they've offered that in that package of software, which is very exciting to people who have been looking at this thing wondering if they should get it. And the even cooler thing about it is if you update to version 10 of the V collection, you'll get the Minifreak software version, and then you can use that for a while and decide if this is something you want to pick up in terms of the hardware. And I've got a couple of videos on the hardware of the Minifreak, and we'll talk about why I love it so much today, and we'll look at a few of the new things, and then we'll go look over at the V collection and show you what's new in there. There's a couple of new instruments, a couple of updated instruments. Just let me know what you want to see in terms of the V collection in the future, and I will put that on the list. So let's get right into the Minifreak and see what it's all about. So version 2 of the Minifreak. I'm going to stick to mostly the software here because a whole bunch of you are going to be getting Minifreak V for the first time, so you're going to be really excited about that. But one thing that they've just added to this Minifreak is the ability to have wavetables. So they haven't had wavetables up to now, and with this new version, we've got 32 wavetables included. When I first heard wavetables and the Minifreak, I was very excited because I thought it'd be something like the Microfreak, which allows user import of wavetables, but we're not there yet. So this is kind of step 1 of getting wavetable import on the Minifreak. Another exciting thing that they've added is super unison. We go over to the effects tab over here. So super unison mode on the Minifreak means that we're going to be able to get some huge stereo patches that were otherwise just kind of mono. Another very cool feature is the ability to have favorites on the synth itself. So the favorites panel, the reason I'm so excited about that one would be if you were to use this in a live scenario, you can have up to 64 different favorite patches just ready to go. All you have to do is go to Shift plus Save, and now you end up in this favorites panel. And these 4 rows of 16 buttons become kind of memory for your favorites. Right, so now you're controlling all of your favorite patches just from this front little panel. And where I picture this keyboard living in my workflow is actually away from this setup right here. And to me, it would be like more of a synth patch creation device that you can take away from your computer. You don't need your laptop. You can sit there with a pair of headphones and create patches. Create patches on the synth itself, and then bring it over to your computer, dump them onto the software version of the Minifreak V, and then you don't even need that synth in your studio setup at that point. So it's kind of like this remote creation device if you want. Otherwise, when you get it back into the studio, it becomes this perfect one-to-one controller for the software itself. So everything you do on the hardware gets imitated on the software. Every single knob is controlling what you think it's going to control. So to get to the new patches, all I'm going to do is click on Sound Banks and go to Minifreak V2, and then we can see all of our new patches that are using these new functionalities. Then I just hit over on Type, and we can try some of them out. So let's start with maybe a drum beat. There is one drum loop in here. Let's just see what this one's. All right, let's just chuck that drum beat in there and see what happens. All right, before we get into the rest of them, let's just add another Minifreak in there. Let's go to a lead patch. We do have super unison on this one. Turn that one off and see what it sounds like. So super unison. So let's go over to reverb. Let's crank it up. So let's just record something in with that. All right, so much more to dig into on the Minifreak V version 2, new patches with the wavetables. But let's move right into the V collection now, have a look at some of the new patches in there, see if there's stuff to get excited about, and make sure that it's something you want to update to. There's a bunch of different ways you can work with the synths. You can work with them like this, where it's just a native virtual instrument in your track. You can also work with it inside Complete Control. So I'll show you that in a second. And then the other way is with Analog Lab V, which is their kind of host software for all of the patches. So we'll talk about that in a second as well. Right now I've got Augmented Woodwinds, which is one of the new ones. I've never played with this one before. And one of the things about Augmented Woodwinds, or the Augmented series, is they're meant to be some kind of synthesis meets orchestral instruments. So included in the V collection now, you get augmented brass, augmented grand piano, and augmented woodwinds, as well as the augmented strings. So they're all fairly new virtual instruments, and they are pretty complex, I will say that. Most of them will benefit from playing with this morph knob. So you can see how we're kind of going from the organic sounds on the left to the more synthetic on the right. And if you click the Advanced tab, that's when you can go in and see the layers that they've got set up. So they've got some kind of flute vibrato thing going on over on the left-hand side. And on the B side, we've got some synth stuff going on. But very complex synths. That's what I will say about them, is that they are quite complex. If you know Pigments, then you're gonna start to find stuff that's very similar over here in terms of things like the LFOs and functions. And so I've got a video on augmented brass and augmented strings. Go watch that one and you'll see exactly how to work with these ones as well. So that's what's nice about the augmented series, is that they all work the same way. So let's go through the Complete Control interface here and have a look at augmented woodwinds. Beautifully laid out on the Complete Control keyboards. I can use the browser and Complete Control here to go through some patches. Listen to the patches as I go through. Definitely rounding out the rest of the augmented series. I'm not sure if this is it for them. Do you know what I'd love to see is an augmented percussion? Why not, right? We don't have a ton of percussion sounds in the V collection. That's something to be aware of right away. We don't have a drum machine recreation in there. I'd love to see that in this V collection. So we get a new Mini V in the V collection. So this one needs no introduction. It's just the new version of it. So they've got a shiny new version of their Moog classic synth recreation here. So let's have a listen to a couple patches. In a little bit, we'll save that for the end, but let's make another patch. And in this one, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna load up Analog Lab V, so we can just have a quick look and talk about that one, because this comes with the V collection. And there is a free version of Analog Lab, which I've got a video for. Make sure you go check that out as well. But the thing I love about Analog Lab is that it's kind of a collection for all of their virtual synthesizers. And with all of these synthesizers, 39 different synthesizers, it's like, kind of overwhelming. And you come to a project and you're like, okay, I need a synth line. And it's like, do you go find one specific synthesizer that you know you like the sound of? Or are you just looking for a cool synthesizer sound? You can go over here, you can say, all right, I just want synth lead sounds. So we can go to type and we can say, all right, let's go lead. Let's go to a soft lead sound, right? all with different synthesizers. And the cool thing about that is now you're not bound to a certain vintage synthesizer. You're actually just going through their entire collection, thinning out the patches on all of their different synthesizers. So that's been my way of working lately, is just to open up Analog Lab, not look for a certain synth in particular, and then just go, okay, I need, this type of patch, and then just go through them all until I find one I like. The downside, I will say, of the V collection is that you are so spoiled for choice. And so you might load up a patch on a synthesizer and go, okay, I really like this patch, but I want some characteristic of it to be a little bit different. And that's where things get complicated, because each synthesizer is this incredible recreation of some piece of hardware, or most of them, and except for the new stuff like Pigments and the augmented series and stuff like that. So if I click open on this one, you can see that I'm now an SQ80V. Well, this is an Ensoniq emulation of a synthesizer that was from the 80s. And it's got a very different way of creating sound than that Moog synthesizer we were just looking at, right? So the downside is trying to learn, okay, now I need to go learn this actual synthesizer to figure out, how to tweak the arpeggiator or to adjust the envelope of a sound or apply an LFO or something like that. Let's figure out how to find a sound in Analog Lab. And all I have to do is go over to Home, and I can go to Instruments, and I can see some new instruments that are in here. Okay, Acid is another one, Acid V, another iconic emulation. This one comes with the new version, so we're just going to go see more for the Acid V patches, and we'll get rid of this other stuff. Look at that, no soft leads in Acid V. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Let's see what we got. Sounds a little bit Crystal Method there. Okay, we also get the augmented grand piano, which is very cool. We get a new Whirly, so a new version of the Whirly virtual instrument. And we get this new one, the CP70V, which is a Yamaha electric piano. It had strings instead of tines like we have in a Fender Rhodes. Some classic late 70s, early 80s sounds. Let's have a listen to a couple of those. So we're getting some serious 80s vibes with that piano. We got a couple other things in there, as I said, that new Whirly and some expansion packs, which I don't have right now. So I've looked at expansion packs in the past, and I've got a video on those as well, and they do some really great stuff with those. So I'm excited to see what kind of patches you get with that. Anyways, let's have a look at this final Moog lead here, play it out, and let me know in the comments what you think about this new version, what you think about the actual Minifreak V2 itself. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and the bell, and I'll see you in the next video.